morning. My name is Chikode. I am the Director of Programs and Partnerships for the British Council. So thank you very much, Patrick, for the insight as well. I have three short questions, just trying to connect the dots. The first one is on the statistics you gave to us concerning the employability and then the degree of getting employment for students from your university. My big question is it possible for us to place similar emphasis on entrepreneurship for our graduates, such that they are not only employable, but they could graduate with the eye of running their own enterprise? The second question I have is on how you collaborate with the community, the host community, in research effort of the university. Take for instance, on simple things like, I don't know whether there's any university that offers M&E as a course, but the need for M&E experts continue to bedevil organizations. For instance, for myself, I have to go to Uganda to get an M&E expert to help me design an M&E framework project. After advertising for a while, it's not as if there are no M&E experts in Ghana, but for the universities to be conscious of what the industries are demanding and form that as a curriculum, part of the curriculum. I spoke about entrepreneurship because I feel most universities, what we do is to have the department say, this is the department of entrepreneurship. I have the beneficial of that as well. But I think it's important because of the need, and this fearful statistics are coming up on demographics, for entrepreneurship to be part of our process, embedded in them. Then my final question is, I don't know whether Ashesi University have been able to develop a model of sustainability of universities, such that university sustainability is not premised on fees of students, but more on IPs, patents, sold, sustained, that sort of thing, so that it can also be seen as a business. As a person, I could accept the university because I see it as a business that is sustainable. And with that, issue of access can also be reduced. I don't know whether Ashesi has able to develop a model of sustainability of university. Thank you very much.
All right. So yes, we do emphasize entrepreneurship, and all our students take a course. All our students take a course in scientific and entrepreneurship as part of the core curriculum. And as I said, we want to see 20% of our students starting a business within 10 years of graduating. When we think about entrepreneurship, though, I say the conversation in Ghana is becoming one of, we expect people to leave university and immediately start a business. I think that is not very realistic. There's going to be a small percentage that have the network and they have a very brilliant idea that can't wait, who will start right away. But most people need to go somewhere and build a network and learn from others and sort of get a better understanding of bigger systems and so on before they're venturing out on their own. And so we think that a 10-year horizon is a more realistic one for us to be seeing this kind of activity. You asked a question, what was the third question? Sustainability, and you mentioned patents specifically. We've had a debate about this, okay, and what to do about IP. We want to really encourage invention and innovation in our campus. And ultimately, we decided our IP policy, our draft IP policy, has not been ratified yet, is that IP will be wholly owned by the students and the faculty who come up with inventions, and the university will not make a claim on any IP. So in a way, we're sort of giving up that avenue for the university to be making money in a contractual way. We encourage those individuals, if they make a lot of money, to donate to the institution, right? But we want to maximize the drive for invention, and we decided this is the way to do it. So we've not taken that particular path. There are other things that we're doing around sustainability. I think it's very important that we engage the alumni and that the alumni are actively giving to the institution. And this is something that we're very actively engaged with.
I like the role Ashesi is playing in terms of inculcating ethical responsibilities to the youth. I'm looking across Ghana, institutions. I very well remember the great speech by President Obama in Ghana in terms of the building blocks of democracy, independent press within civil society. I need to know the kind of partnership that Ashesi has put in place with other institutions, other universities, in order to build that strong youth, because they were the future of the country. What partnerships have we formed in trying to build up the kind of youth that can take over the role of administering Ghana in the near future? Because I'm still looking at the generation ahead of us, and the picture does not seem to be too clear for us. What partnerships are you exploring? Because I can only see Ashesi kind of spearheading this role, but I'm not seeing it cut across other universities in terms of partnerships. I don't see the message so well spread out there. When I listen to radio and I listen to other media, the debates that have gone on, I don't see so much of ethical responsibility coming from academia. So what are we doing about that? Thank you very much.
But the question I want to ask is, after hearing everything that Megali and Patrick have spoken about, I'm just wondering if he finds anything peculiar that Ashesi is doing that he thinks will be worth inculcating in our mainstream universities, and what they are.
You talked about how Africans value education very highly, and then you also showed that those Africans who are more highly educated like to migrate. And this tangents my own research on university students in Ghana. And for me, when I spoke to university students, they're telling me that they would like to migrate for graduate education. So is it a possibility that your data, I know you have bigger data sets than I had, that it's actually not a migration for good that Africans are talking about, but their value is education, so they're interested in going out, getting the education, and then maybe returning back. That's what my informant's told.
Well, this meeting is an effort to establish such partnerships. Interestingly enough, we have exchange partnerships with universities in North America and Europe. We're now exploring exchange partnerships with universities on the continent. So we're going back and forth. But through this collaboration, we're actually engaged with other universities. We send people to other universities at their invitation to share ideas. In Ghana, around the question of ethics and honor codes and so on, we've seen some movement in the high school system, interestingly. So Wesley Girls High School and then Hope College in the central region, their student bodies have implemented honor systems. We haven't seen that at the university level yet. I posted a couple of visits from other universities that wanted to talk with us about this. We've had a conversation with them, but I haven't seen movement on their campuses in this area.
For your question about our data. So the way the question is worded, it is, if you had the opportunity to do so, would you leave permanently to go to another country, or would you rather stay in your country? So it is more of a permanent move. Now again, the question is presented to respondents in a hypothetical manner. So they're right at the spur of the moment, they have to think quickly and provide their answer. But we do see a very wide range across the continent with, basically you have like 2-3 countries. I mentioned Comoros, I mentioned Sierra Leone. Liberia is also very high, where you have 3/4 of the youth, the educated youth who emigrate. Not everyone is going to leave, of course, because it's very hard to move and to go and set up groups in another country, including in the United States. But many of them will probably make good on their intention of leaving. Whether they will come back, that is, that would be another study. It would be like maybe looking at the people who have already lived, who are part of the diaspora in Western Europe, in the United States, and whether they are planning to go back to their country of origin. But as the question is currently worded, we have no reason to believe that people are not thinking of that it wouldn't be a permanent move.
Thank you, Patrick, for your presentation, especially concerning the attitude of the student, the manners, stealing, and other. I'm just wondering, once you find the problem, do you think it is really possible to fix it at that stage? And it's like this kind of, let's say, attitude or manner. We made a survey when I was in Ethiopia, and our students and also the LAT community, family plays very big role actually in the early childhood development. Once it is like coded, like you provide, it's really hard to modify that behavior. So I am just wondering in the university if a behavior, hardwired behavior, can be fixed, or is it eliminated, like from the graduation? How do you really do it? Is a concern? And in the large scale in Ghana, the Ministry of Education in the school system, I'm just wondering if there is an embedded system to fix a behavior, to enforce certain behavior, eliminate others that are not needed or may be harmful to the society. Because behavior is very challenging thing to deal with. So in practical terms, how do you do it?
My question goes to Magali. Concerning your data, you talked about intentions of migrating. I was wondering if you looked at the antecedents and probably the expected outcome for migrating. Because people might want to migrate for several reasons. And they could also would want to migrate because of certain things they are facing within their continent or within their country. So I don't know if your data considers those variables as to the antecedents and the consequences of war migrating. So the expected outcome and the reasons why they would want to migrate permanently. So if your data really looks at that, you could probably throw more light on these things. That would be very helpful.
My question to Patrick is, how have you managed to make your faculty to unlearn? Because you raised an issue that one of the greatest challenges you have is finding faculty. And I agree with you. This is one of the biggest problems we keep encountering, that when we try as much as possible as a consortia trying to push for new thinking and new direction, the biggest bottleneck is actually faculty. They will simply tell you, that can't work here. That's the first thing, that's the biggest response you'll always, it's not possible. The second thing, which comes again from what Patrick raised, is around being together. And I think Education Collaborative is a good move, because as a network, we have seen so many things happen as being a network. And so I wouldn't wish that this goes down, it can only grow bigger. The third issue was to the colleague who raised, is there where they train persons in M&E? As Ruforum, we noticed this challenge about 6-7 years ago, and so we launched a regional master's program in monitoring and evaluation. And as again, we asked many universities to host it, and many of them said, it can't work, that's not something very important for now. And one university has accepted to take the risk, and now it's one of the bigger programs that they are trending on. So yes, there is a program in monitoring and evaluation on a regional basis. So these are some of the interventions I would like to put across.
I want to give a bit of context. So I spoke very forcefully about the things that are going wrong, because I said even one case is too much, but at the peak, what we were seeing was 5.6 cases per 100 students, right? So it's not like this was, something that was completely overwhelming us. It's just, it was more cases than we're used to. And, other years is like 1 case per 100 students or 2 cases per 100 students in a year, in a whole academic year. So just sort of set the context. The second thing is, it turns out that what happened in a lot of those theft cases is that, the cases got reported to us, and when the perpetrators were caught, it was because their friends brought them forward to hold them accountable. So, in other words, the honor system had sort of engaged beyond the classroom into a more social sector, and actually the social setting. And actually, there was a conversation on campus about how could this even be happening when we have an honor system and students take exams on proctored and they don't cheat, or if they do, they're held accountable. How can thefts be happening? We should have a social honor system, and actually there was one that was signed into force last year to try and broaden it. So just to say that for us, it doesn't matter where students have come from. Our job is to educate future leaders for the continent. So we take them where they are, and they need to be in an environment where there's a deep conversation about ethics that everybody's involved in, and where they get to learn about setting up a social compact, learning about ethical philosophy, and then making a decision of what their good society should be, and then enforcing it. So what our students are learning is that there will always be some people who cheat, actually, right? And when they go out in the world, they go become judges or whatever. If there's a judge that is doing the wrong thing, the people best able to hold that person accountable are other judges. And they need to learn now how to do that, right? So for us, that's a perspective we take. Now I want to share a quick example. A student who walked into my office one day and he said, look, I have a big problem at home. I'm in a school with an honor system. I take exams on proctored. We have this very strong ethos around ethical behavior. But at home, my family is stealing electricity. And my brother has basically bypassed the electric meter. And I've been having an argument with my brother about it. My mother is silent on the issue. And what I've done is I don't turn on the lights in my bedroom because I don't want to be part of it. but his problem, his dilemma was, he realized that, but he eats food from the refrigerator, right? So he was still participating, and he came to ask my advice on what to do. And my advice to him was, look, you need to go home and have this conversation with your mother about what kinds of values you want to have at home and with your brother and so on. So he went and did that, and he came back and said, they've agreed that we've reconnected back to the electric meter, right? So this was an example where he's sort of, there's something happening at home, and there's something else happening at the university, because we've made it our responsibility to teach him a different way of seeing things. Stealing from the electricity corporation is theft, right? And he had to think about it and decide whether it was okay or not. And ultimately, he decided it's not okay, and he brought his family along, right? So we should take that as our challenge. We should not say, well, because when they were in high school this was happening, or maybe at college this is happening, then there's nothing we can do about it. Our job is to turn things around. Our job is to build a better Africa, and that's a view that I take on it.
And Patrick, since you still have the mic, a question on how do you engage one of your most important stakeholders, teachers, bringing them along.
Right. So with the faculty, What I should have said is it's really difficult to find qualified people. And for us, qualified people, it's, you know, they know the subject matter, they know the material, but they also sort of understand the ethical philosophy, I mean not the ethical, the teaching philosophy that we want to implement at Ashesi. Are they going to be student-centered? Do they know how to engage students in conversation and get students to be analytical and so on? And it's very difficult to do. So the first thing is you want a critical mass of faculty to get it, right? And you have to really work hard to get that. And then you want to have an environment on your campus where everybody's learning from everybody. So you have workshops on campus where faculty are sharing, you know, with each other what they're doing in their classrooms. You should have an environment where faculty are open to having their peers come and sit in on their classes and give them feedback on what they saw, what works well, what doesn't work well. Now, it's easier said than done. I mean, there are egos in the way. There's some faculty that don't want people to come sit in their classrooms because, you know, I'm the king of this pond or whatever. But so you want to hire for fit, for people who have the attitude where they're interested in learning from each other, they're interested in teaching others and sharing with others. And if you have a critical mass of that, it makes the job a lot easier. So that's how we engage.
And how do you engage in cases where you are not responsible for hiring? Which is what he had spoken about in terms of the rule forum being a network that has to engage faculty. So these are people that are already in the teaching profession, but they have to work with them to reach consensus. What are some of the ways in which you can approach that?
Well, you know, people are adults, right? They have free will. I think respectful conversations are the best way to go. You've got to, and if you have a respectful conversation, and if you can agree up front about what is it that you're trying to actually achieve. So if there's an agreement about, you know, this is what we all want to see, then, and why you want to achieve that, then the conversation becomes about how you get there. And there are different paths to get there. There are different options in the solution space. And then you just have, you know, you just have a respectful conversation about which of those solutions you're going to try. And you also need to encourage people to experiment. Just try things, and you take the things that work and you look at things that don't work.
You're absolutely right. There could be a variety of motivations. I did look to cross paths to see, and I don't want to say that A causes B. Very, very, you know, I just don't want to do that. I want to just say that there is a relationship between something and then a higher desire to leave the country. And it's not income. It's not like the lowest, the most economically disadvantaged youth who are the most likely to want to leave their country. It's so it's not related to, you know, an economic situation. But we do see a relationship between lack of job opportunities. So young people's perceptions of the local job climate. That's one thing. The other thing, and that's pretty dramatic, and I kind of alluded to it in my speech, it's this business of umbrellas, right? Connections. And what we see is that young people who are the most likely to disapprove of the national government, of the country leadership, are the ones who are the most likely to want to leave. So I think it's, and that's why, you know, looking at it, number one, in a holistic manner, and not just It's not just about one thing poor people want to leave. It's much more complex than that. And two, there are so many differences across the entire region that we will need to look at this data at the country level, and what is happening in Ghana versus what's happening in Rwanda or Mali. I brought up Mali with 63% who say it's not that education is not important, but personal connections really bubble to the top when you ask this question in Mali. So it's a complex. There are several reasons that are related, and I don't want to use cause and effect, but we need to look at the bigger ecosystem to address the reasons behind it.
Is there a way that the Ashesi team can put together smaller programs that can help institutions or particularly smaller organizations to be able to increase or come up with better ethical standards in their various organizations? Because we believe that almost all of us here have gone through the system already. We have gone through our almost finished our higher educations, which means that some of us have not gotten the opportunity to experience this trend of higher ethical standard. Is there a way the Ashesi team or other universities in Ghana develop programs in a smaller way that would be able to help institutions train or guide their workers to be able to live higher ethical standards in their organization? Because most of the cases, when you have graduates of higher standards come out, they fall back to what is already in the system. And that's what the researcher was trying to explain, that a lot of people try to force out because the system is not accepting them. So in a way of challenging the system, they get repelled and would want to relocate. So if there are kind of uniform attitude across, then everybody will be able to live in a very cordial way. So if the institution can come up with something for us, it would be quite good.
I'm Myron Williams, Clark Atlanta University. Question with respect to the demographic challenge. It's important not just to deal with things at the tertiary education level, but to develop primary and secondary education. And of course, no institution can be all things to all people. It has to focus on its strengths. But in just thoughts, and perhaps this is a question more for Minister Yanka, how can institutions focusing on technical capacity most effectively impact primary and secondary education? Again, especially in the context of ethical issues, because that development needs to take place early. As I was just speaking to a colleague, teaching a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old ethics is a bit problematic, whereas a 10-year-old, one can do much more development.
Hello, colleagues. Let me say I give it a great honor to be invited to this forum organized by Ashesi University as part of an educational collaborative through which this university seeks to impact on education in Africa. Now, listening to the quality of introductions this morning alone, presentations made and discussions thereafter, I can well conjecture the general quality of interaction in the past few days that you've had. For a university like Ashesi, virtually the newest private university in Ghana to have attained the charter to award its own degrees, this agenda appears to be rather tall order. The stream of affairs. A university founded in 2002 affiliate to another university, gaining autonomy to award its own degrees after 16 years or so. Just a year thereafter, feeling sufficiently mature to create forums such as this for the purpose of networking to cope with emerging challenges in Africa. Within the context of a continent where it is almost an offense for kids to talk back or ask so many questions, and could easily have responded to Ashesi's agenda with the proverb, when the small weaver bird seeks to imitate the cry of the giant cuckoo bird, its bottom explodes. Yet for those who know the upbringing of Ashesi, through its formative years and adolescence, rapid development within the school, as well as impact it has made on Ghana and Africa in general, by its short span of existence, should not surprise us. What should surprise us all is the time it takes a nation to discover uncharted minefields that have been neglected or abandoned for years. In its proper perspective, the nation ought to be apologizing to this whiskey university for years of misconception, misapprehension, or even suspicion of its mission. Meanwhile, the continent was smarting under the weight of a deficit in ethics and leadership, and a huge deficit in entrepreneurship and innovative thinking that could have propelled the wheels of development in Africa. Ashesi's biggest problem in Ghana was a conservative system that feared to dream, was also afraid and suspicious of dreamers. When in 2002, the conundrum of a university called Ashesi started stirring, I was the Dean of the Faculty of Arts at the University of Ghana, where one Patrick came and announced his mission to be in a tertiary education system, where first private universities applied to be mentored by a mature public university, and eventually attained autonomy after more than 10 years. Meanwhile, awarding degrees not in its own name, but in the name of the mentoring university. The name of the new enterprise itself was an anthem, Ashesi, the beginning of sorts, an attempt to look at education from the scratch, through the prism of innovative thinking ab initio, next through immersion to maturity, a kind of educational renaissance that sought to boldly announce the birth of a new dawn for African universities. Was Patrick Ewuah romanticizing? Indeed, the challenge for Ghana's tertiary system was the painful process of how to accommodate or digest an Ashesi. An educational system that was not bold enough to dream, and that was bogged down in bureaucracy and not abreast with global trends. It was soon to be discovered that it was apparently the system that was the problem and not Patrick Ewuah. The biggest challenge with Ghana's mentoring policy in higher education has been that all new programs or courses developed by the mentored university need to be approved through the dual agencies of an accreditation board, which is normal, but also the mentoring university itself. The biggest paradox or challenge was situations where a mentoring university has no capacity to mentor or direct a new program from the mentee. In the absence of this, either the mentored university looks for an external mentor in another country or simply abandons the new program in the offing. In such circumstances, the system itself by default should be seen to have an inbuilt obsolescence, leaving little room for innovation or entrepreneurship and educational transformation. The system indeed makes no room for dreaming, no room for dreams. Mentor alone is entitled to dream and not the mentee. For new ideas can be expected of a university. For no new ideas, can be expected of a new university. Call it a no right to dream policy, a dream censorship of sorts. Under such circumstances, the urge to dream and seek solutions to national problems is arrested, and the outcome is stunted growth. Indeed, the cost of being innovative has been high. The cost of new programs has been high and prohibitive in ways that deter the urge to innovate. Yet the world over, the labor market has long gone beyond which subjects you studied, which grades you obtained, etc., to propensities for leadership and thinking on your feet. Bottom line is that when I joined Central University College in 2012 from University of Ghana, where I was pro-vice chancellor, I found in Ashesi a partner in a rather unusual struggle for autonomy. We were together in the trenches, a time where no one was ever sure there would be a streak of light from anywhere one day. We moved together, grouped together in the dark, shared frustrations while each other's tears. Happily, Central, which I headed at the time, obtained a charter early 2016. At the celebration of the charter of Central University, my brother Patrick was there, standing firmly behind me, behind Central University, sharing the joy of achievement. Patrick's own turn was quietly in the offing. Together, we have been jointly expressing frustrations with the system of accreditation and chartering, which seem heavily tilted against the interests of the private sector. At one of our meetings, the founder of one of the bigger private universities burst out in frustration and said the entire accreditation and charter arrangement was a conspiracy by government to collapse the private sector. In another case, another founder openly expressed regrets for having invested in private sector education. The truth, of course, is that the government needs the private sector to help mitigate the burden of education and its costs, otherwise solely borne by a highly constrained government budget. All the private sector needs is an auspicious business environment and regulatory framework which will start business and propel the wheels of education. The narrative, however, has been different. The number of private universities have felt frustrated. We're struggling to pay back loans, or at one time or the other, suffocating in the nuisance taxes, or were simply collapsing. Ashesi's long wait sometimes culminated in uneasy confrontations with Ghana's regulatory bodies at local and international conferences. I personally observed one such in Gabon, 2013. The irony being that as the local system frustrated Ashesi, the system could not impede Ashesi's growing international fame. A few of the global rankings, the fledgling university college could even boast of having been ranked higher than some of its mentors. Fortunately, barring unexpected hitches in Parliament, Ghana's bogus affiliation system will soon be jettisoned, considered a thing of the past under the government of Nana and the Dad part of Swat. I do recall that at an annual Ghana Bar Association conference hosted by Central University where I was, in 2015, the presidential candidate Nana Fuado, whom I was escorting after the opening ceremony to a reception, kept asking me about Ashesi University College, expressing amazement about the bold pathway it had charted. This was a few months after he had visited Ashesi for the first time. As soon as this government was elected to office, the president got the Ministry of Education working together to change the system, liberate the private sector, and start the process of dismantling policies that constrain creativity in dynamic universities like Ashesi. But even as the University College without the capacity to award its own degrees. A bright future glowed ahead of a university whose graduates got more quickly employed after graduation than its own mentors. The conference organized by the Ministry of Education early this year, Tertiary Education and Enterprise Development, we invited Ashesi to come and share a success story of entrepreneurship and long-term engagement with industry. It was indeed a story that needed telling and needed bigger forums to share. Elsewhere, I myself have had the occasion to make references at international conferences, and several of them, to the Ashesi experience in its engagement with ethics in leadership. One such speech I made for Ashesi was in 2008, at the Conference on Education and Global Ethics in Geneva. But of course, the question has been raised as to why not Ashesi writ large across Ghana. It sounds very easy. Let me emphasize that Ashesi is the newest, the latest private university to obtain the charter, actually the newest, to give a certificate saying this is from Ashesi University. Others have been in existence for the mathematics, 1948, 70, so forth. To start a university with a vision, that is a righteous, far-sighted vision. It may sound simple, but it may not be simple within our circumstances. A vision in our context is what is dreamt out as being fanciful and as capable of attracting attention, that we are training universities, students to serve Mother Ghana, Mother Africa in a righteous way. Look at the several faith-based universities in Ghana now. It would have been very easy to make a transition from Ashesi to one such university. Ashesi is not a faith-based university. There are several faith-based universities, maybe the majority within the private sector. I can count at least 20-25 within Ghana alone. One can just take a study of the nature and the practice of ethics within those universities and decide whether a faith-based university could easily be an Ashesi. You may jump to your own conclusion. I've been through a number of them and I cannot comment publicly on them. Secondly is the issue of massification. One of the success stories of Ashesi has been control of enrollment figures and numbers. Be lucky to be appointed to any faith-based university in Ghana as Vice Chancellor, President, and say, I have a vision to limit the number of students admitted to 1,200. You will be sacked instantly. The numbers that you have at the University of Ghana currently 40,000. Good luck, University of Ghana, if you want to be an Ashesi. But even more important, looking at the trajectory through which Ashesi has passed in the past 18 or so years of struggling. A mentee, having been mentored by public universities for how many years? 16?
Yes.
Before they got their charter autonomy. Now for this small boy to come and impact on the big brother, a big university of close to 70 years old, having mentored this small university and now turning around to learn from this university, that will be a big challenge. I'm telling you this. But even much more importantly, don't forget that Every university in Ghana has a code of ethics across board. And currently we are coming out with a tertiary education policies document in which the need for code of ethics has been embedded across board. It is one thing embedding a code of ethics in the books, another than practicing the code of honor that we have in Ashesi University. Currently, the Global Ethics Forum, which organized a conference in Switzerland and attended last year, is trying to make headway within the Ghana's educational system to see how far they can get this to be universalized and encoded within the curriculum. But don't also forget that within Ghana's own primary education sector, as soon as recently there was talk about making a few changes in the courses that are run in primary schools, and there was a small signal that religious and moral education will be abolished. There was new and cry, and that was good news because we needed to have ethically sensitive children from the beginning. And I'm very glad that that has been returned to the curriculum, at least as an elective in several primary schools. Consider also the fact that missionary education or the historical or the missionary foundations of several schools in Ghana, those are quite clear at the moment. You have the Presbyterian-based schools, Methodist-based schools, and so on and so forth. But of course, the Ashesi brand is a different agenda that cannot be forced, but that you can encourage other universities and institutions to emulate. The idea of a collaborative like this is a great initiative. And very soon, a hitherto mentored university may find itself hosting some of its former mentors, networking on issues like leadership and innovation as part of efforts to cultivate best practices to solve critical challenges in Africa. The answer that has been harped over and over again does not simply lie in how much is invested in education. The most critical issue is that of deliverables and education outcomes. Let me cite a common example. The nation's prioritization of education can be best seen in the share of education in this country's national budget. The education sector over the past 6 years has received between 20 and 27% of the national budget, representing 6 to 8% of the GDP. The world average of expenditure on education as a percentage of total budgets is 21%, representing 4.7% of GDP. Ghana's 6 to 8% of GDP then places the nation above the world averages, and in the bracket of Finland and Kenya. Ghana has generally spent more on education as a percentage of GDP as compared to other countries in the ECOWAS sub-region, and operates above the ECOWAS average of 4.3% of GDP. In the area of government expenditure on tertiary education subsector, tertiary has often received 20 to 33% of the education budget, representing 1.5% of GDP. To say this, however, is not to gloat about educational outcomes. For countries like South Korea, Singapore, and so on, spend much lesser percentages of their GDP on education, but the global impact of their education on development and wealth creation is evident. It is simply not a game of expenditures. It is a game of content, quality, and learning outcomes. Ashesi's goal in this collaborative to promote collaboration among Africa's institutions, to share best practices in using education to resolve Africa's manifold flashpoints for crisis. It's a golden one, for the statistics are grim. The population of 200 million people aged between 15 and 24 years, representing the youth. Africa is regarded as the youngest continent, or rather the youngest population in the world. About 10 million to 12 million young people join the labor market each year. The The youth account for 60% of all unemployed. To top it all, it is estimated that more than 70% of Africa's youth are poor by definition, that is living on less than $2 per day. The question has often been how to use education to transform the huge pool of idle hands into a creative force. From another perspective, it has been said that more learning does not necessarily lead to better education or higher development. The emphasis is no longer on input, but outcomes and accountability. Higher budget on education does not necessarily lead to better education. But for those who have been observant, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo's educational reform agenda is easily the most far-reaching in Ghana's educational history, breaking from the kindergarten through primary, junior high school, senior high, technical, vocational, and across tertiary education. At the end of the day, no single sector in education remains untouched, indeed unreformed by Nana's ambitious agenda. It is an all-embracing scheme. The tertiary sector in education will soon start a process of unveiling fragments of tertiary reforms, which will begin with reforming the regulatory framework of tertiary education through to an agenda to promote an organic link between tertiary education, innovation, and enterprise development. Colleagues, these are exciting times ahead of institutions that have a passion for innovation and critical thinking. And where Ashesi University was lost groping in the wilderness for a suitable environment. For Ashesi, who have been groping in the past like yesterday, and Brother Patrick Iwa, here is one delivered by the government of Nana Akufo-Addo. On this note, let me congratulate Ashesi University once again for your manifold initiatives. And to thank you, Ashesi, for having innovatively disrupted Ghana's education in the better interest of Africa. Thank you.
So it's been an interesting morning, full of a lot of different things to reflect on and ponder. Thank you once more for coming. I know there's going to be a networking session downstairs at the reception area, to the right of the reception area. I hope we'll keep the conversations going. But before we wrap up, I'd like to, for us to really applaud the work of Rose Claude and Takako and Chanel and Stephen. The whole thing around is, oh, can we do some more? So we are hoping that this continues, that the conversations will continue within this week and beyond it, that we'll keep trying to find ways to work together and learn from each other. And of course, if you have more feedback, please keep sharing them as the week wears along. And so with that, I'd like to wrap up the session. And I'd like to invite one person, just one, to share a quick thought on their biggest takeaway from this morning, or if you were here yesterday for the 2 days. Just one person.
I did get here rather late, but I've been very engrossed in what I've heard so far. And I was really struck by what Professor Yanka said about the potential for Africa, because the numbers that that Gallup have gathered, right, means that we have a serious issue on our hands. But one thing I've really learned from my time at Ashesi University is problems are just opportunities written with a negative mindset, right? And what I really took away was the fact that 70% of Africa's youth are lying poor and largely unemployed. Is there a way that we can get all of that power, all of that untapped power, and transform it into like this irrepressible force driving a change on this continent? And really, that's what we are here for, right? And that's the real magic of having events like this, because we have all of this, all of these thoughts and these ideas, and like Dr. Iwa said, we should be pushing for a society where people want to constantly learn from each other and also teach teach other people what they have learned. And so basically, what I'm trying to say here is, I've said a lot of things, but what I'm trying to say here is that it's a really good thing that we're all here. We're all trying to make sense of the impending issues we'll face as a continent, and we're trying to be proactive in finding solutions to them before we get there.